Hello and welcome back to a new video here in my C++ tutorial series. Now in the last video we have talked about premake and we basically have set it up everything correctly so that we can call these nice functions and customize our projects how we like it. Have it as simple as calling one line, or if we want to have it a bit more complicated, having 4 lines. And these were all nice features. We can close them, it's set up correctly, and we are good for coding. Now what I want to do today is I want to today write a new application. So how do I do this, writing a new application? Well, I'm going to create a new folder, call it 10 underscore, let's call this one CMD tools, because we want to write some command line tools. Now instead of this command line tools, to make them work, I need a build.lua file for writing our builds. I'm just going to steal some code from there. We can just copy paste them down in here. It's going to be called 10 underscore CMD tools, and we should be good and ready up for running. We can just add auto simplicity just a main.cpp inside of here and write our main.cpp in here so that we don't need to create the file in Visual Studio. So include iostream int main. Since this is going to be command line tools, I'm going to need them. Int argc and char pointer argv are going to be our command line tools, and I can do a quick stdc out hello world in here. And then what I can do is I can run my dev tool again, which is going to generate nothing because I again accidentally forgot to include them in my premake5.lua. And I definitely need to at some point show you how you can write it so that it's automatically detecting changes. However, these are not as easy to do in our project, and we would need to do a bit of refactoring, but we might do at some point. But let's add it in here, run it again, and we should have a new project in here. And if I reload my solution, it should pop up there. I can close up all of these tabs. I can go in here, open my main file, and switch this to the right display mode. And here we are. Let's set this as a startup project quickly. And we are set for writing some code. Now, what I want to do today is I want to write some command line utils that you can use. So what I want to do is that you do not use the application by just double-clicking. The idea is that you're going to have some options that you can apply, and depending on the command line option, it's going to do something. What I want to do is I want to have a nice little printing application. So you're going to write, it's going to be a greeter, right? You shall greet people. And the usage is going to be CMD tools. Or I think it's called like 010 CMD tools, and then the usage should be something like greet me. For example, I want to greet Ludwig or Ludwig if we want to follow the channel name. So I want to greet Ludwig, or what you could do is say like greet Ludwig Fusel, and then I want to supply a message or an MSG for short and say hello Ludwig, or no, we're gonna have the greeting in here and say hi from the computer. And this is basically how I want to use my application. I want to always have like a specifier what I want to do. So I want to greet Ludwig Fusel with a message. Or we could even do this differently, but we're going to refactor this anyway. So now what you could do is you could now try to parse these char pointer, and you could use these, and you could use argc and argv to basically generate yourself some structures out of these, use some C++ magic, and write like 100, 200, 300, 400 lines to basically parse this command line here and probably use this correctly. So that's an idea. That's something that would work, right? You could do this and everything would be good. You could do it like that and parse it all manually. However, in general, what you won't want to do is you do not always want to do everything manually. So the idea if you are doing programming is not that you write always code from scratch. What you rather do is you're going to try to find a library that's already existing and that's going to provide you these features. So now what you could do is you could go to Google and search for C++ command line arguments parser. And if you search for that, you're gonna find some libraries that allow you command line parsing. So there are many things in here, but you could go to something like Medium here and try to find something and not sure if they are doing it manually or if they are suggesting some libraries. No, they are not suggesting libraries. So what I could do is like say something like, okay, C++ argument parser library. And if you see that, you can see that you can find libraries. For example, that one here, I don't know that one actually. And you can take a look at these and say, all right, that's the parser that I want to use. And this library is going to be solving my issue. However, I not want to do this like that. I want to use something that I already know, C++ arg parse. And what you're going to find is that library, argument parser for modern C++. This is some pre-existing code that is going to be able to parse your arguments, and it's documented quickly. That's how you include this. This is how you create an instance for that. You can provide some version number, default arguments if you want to have some. You can add arguments to configure it, and then you can try to parse your arguments and then probably use your application with arguments, and you can get them out by getting an integer from the argument square, for example. And if you then do it, you're going to get some output here, squared, something, input times input. Right, nice, simple. So I want to use this library now. Now, how do I use this library? There are multiple ways of actually using a library. Now, the first thing is you could go to releases. You could download the source code. You could compile it from source, or in this case, you actually just need the this one single file, this argparser.hpp, because it's a single header file. You could take that library and copy it over to your project and simply use it. So now I would have that file here. I could save this under a different location, and everything is good. And in this library, for that specific library, it would be fine, right? It's just one file that you need to copy. However, it's not always going to be that simple. Libraries in C++ can be built in various ways. There can just be headers. There can actually be C libraries that are wrapped into C++. There could be C++ libraries that need a proper build step. There could be libraries that are highly configurable and need a custom build on your system. And the list goes on. So really, if you want to add some libraries, there's like a various way of doing it. Now, what you in general would do, you want to use a build system, right? You want to use a build system and properly integrate this. Now, normally you would use a build system like CMake. If you are from 1990 whatever, you're going to use something like CMake, and you can just add the folder of the library in your project, and then you can tell CMake, all right, this is a subdirectory that I want to use, or you could download the library, tell CMake to compile and install the library on your system, and then you can later on search for that. However, all of these solutions are having one big issue. They are kind of like always requiring a build step. They are adding massive loads on your system. They are making your development harder and more hard to port to different machines and operating systems, and it's all not really a nice solution. However, there are actually solutions that can help you, and the solution that's going to help you is a package manager. Now, a package manager is a special application which sole purpose is to download new libraries. For example, one big package manager that is out there is Conan. That's the package manager that we're gonna use. I actually already did a tutorial on Conan, a quite extensive tutorial on Conan, but we're gonna do this today a bit faster with Conan and just cover the basic concept and rather talk about integrating this properly with premake in our system than really talking about Conan, the C++ package manager. Now, Conan has the advantage that you can download binaries. So if there are already some pre-existing binary builds for your platform, they are just going to download them. It's not going to be built on your computer. And if you need to build them, it's going to download most of the time all of the dependencies automatically. Now, Conan has something called Conan Center, and in this Conan Center, all libraries that are supported are in here. Most important libraries are in there. However, sometimes they're not going to have some. You can see that we have a few in here. And for example, the argparse is something that's actually in here. This is why I've chosen that library, because from all of them that I liked, this was the only thing that was in here. So you can see that argparser is in here. This is actually the only thing you're going to need as soon as you have Conan installed, just a single line, and the library will be loaded onto your system and properly configured for your project. Now, To get started with Conan, you first want to download Conan. So how do you download Conan? Well, you download Conan by installing it with pip. This is the one single command that you need to install it. Of course, you need Python, but we already have that one. So I can copy that command here. Then I can open up a Python command prompt. Python, it's a bit slow currently. I don't think that this is the right Python command prompt. I think we have installed this globally. Let's try this out with a CMD. Do we have this installed? If I enter on pip, yeah, it gives me some output, so it has been installed. However, that's not what I want to use. I actually want to use an admin CMD to install it globally on my system. If you do not have administration privileges on your system, it's okay to also install this locally. But I want to do this on the system, so it's better to do it like that. And then the only thing left to do is paste it in, which doesn't work. Okay, so pip install Conan, press enter. And yeah, it actually is already installed on that machine. Seems like it. Did I made the Conan tutorial from that machine? Not quite sure. However, if you have not installed this already, it is gonna download a few things and it's gonna do a few things, take a time, and then it's gonna say, all right, finished. Now, if you might also get this comment here, to update pip. If pip is outdated, you can do this. It really doesn't matter for our purposes. Let's do it again just to be 100% safe. This is just updating the Python package manager. Something that you should do if it's outdated and telling you should update it. Successfully installed pip. Yeah, there it is. If I now retype pip install Conan, it's already gonna be in here, right? And as soon as you're gonna have Conan installed, you can actually type in Conan as a command, and you're gonna get this output. And if you're getting this output, you know that your package manager Conan has been created. Now, what you now want to do is you want to start creating your first project with Conan, or your first Conan dependencies in here. And everything in Conan is going to be handled from a Conan file. So Conan file, I think it's Conan file.txt, not really sure. I don't think that it's really important how you write this, but what you want to do is you want to create a new file called Conan file.txt, and then you want to start filling this out. Now, I already did a tutorial on that one, so I'm quickly going to go into my GitHub account and I'm going to take a look at my Conan tutorial, what I have done here. If you want to have an in-depth tutorial, it's on the channel. It might pop up now or not, or it's somewhere in the description. But somewhere I have my web string hasher, which is the, it used Conan, but I think, Conan premake tutorial, there it is. And I didn't use high caps, so maybe let's delete this file and make it lowercase so that it's completely Conan file. But you see, I think it's important for Linux. If it's not lowercase completely, you might fail on Linux. On Windows, it shouldn't matter. And this just contains a bit of information here about everything that we need. And we're going to go into the Conan file.txt. And you can see that the Conan file has a few things that you need to do. Now, what I want to do first is I want to fill out my requires. The requires are basically a list of libraries that you need for your project. In our case, we want to use the arc parser here. So what we can do is we can click the button here to copy over the ID and paste this ID in here. Now, the next thing that you need to do is you need to fill out options and imports. We're probably not going to use imports because the argument parser does not use library at all. It's just a single header, so it's not that important. However, what I like to always satisfy is the options, even though we might not configure them, but I want to have them in here, always in here. Now, the next thing that you want to do is now you want to actually generate this project. We can take a look on how I've done this in this tutorial by taking a look at the build.bat file, because that thing has done it properly. No, it has not done it. It has called configure release vs 2022. Yeah, this was a bit bad. We're going to do this way better than it has been done in here. We're going to start with debugging builds, and then we're going to later on move on release builds. But what you want to do is you want to type in that command, Conan install dot -- build space missing as build type equals debug. Now, what this basically means, it means calling Conan. Conan is the command. We are calling the package manager. We are telling it to install, and we're telling it to install on the current directory, which means install all dependencies for the current directory, which means reading that Conan file.txt and installing the dependencies in the directory. Now, we're going to give it two more arguments. We're first going to give it the argument build, and we're going to tell it that it should build missing. So everything that's missing, which is not existing as a binary release, should be builded. You could also tell it that it should build everything, but that's not something that's useful. And then you want to also provide this dot to this dash space, which basically means settings. And we're going to provide a few settings. We are going to provide the setting build underscore type equals debug, which means build type debug builds. And we're going to make this a bit different on Python later on with a Python or Python tools to make this install a bit more verbose and as well on debug and release. Now, if you are entering this command, it's going to do a few things. And at some point, it's done. And you're going to get some output here. For example, you get some requirements here. So argparser packages is the actual package that's going to do. You can see that it tries to download both of them. It's installing them. So retrieving package, downloading, decompressing, package installed, generating, blah, 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 blah. And if it's done, you're going to see that a few files has been created. Now let's take a look at these files. The first file that has been created is a Conan.log file. Now this Conan.log file is a JSON file that contains a few information on how your project has been created. This is dependent on the machine, which means that this is always generated by Conan. So this is actually a file that we don't want to include into our Git. So what I want to exclude is exclude Conan in our git ignore. So dash conan.log. We don't need that file. So let's save it and it should disappear. Now what we also got is a Conan build info.txt. The Conan build info.txt is basically some information about how it has been built. For example, you can see that it has a list of include directories, library directories, binary directories, resource directories, build directories, whatever that is, libraries that needs to be used, system libraries to be used, defines that need to be defined, C++ flags, CXX flags, CF flags, whatever, shared linker flags, Excel linker flags, system, whatever rules, framework, and the same thing again for each library, in this case the argparser. And it provides many options that basically, tell how this project has been created, right? It's always like a key and then one or multiple values following. So for example, the version of argparser is 2.9. And this is also like something that's been generated. You can see it's C user tutorial.conan, so it's definitely a path that you do not want to have in Git. So the Conan build info is something that's been generated when you have installed with Conan, so this is something that we need. Build info.txt, but this is something that we don't want to add into Git, right? Because it's generated for each computer by Conan, right? So Conan build info, we don't need it. Additionally, you can see that we have this Conan file.txt. This is the file that we have just created. It's not newly created, so that's okay. We want to keep that one. We have the Conan.info.txt. This is a information file that basically contains information how the solution or how the directory has been generated. So basically how that Conan build info was generated. It has like the architecture, build type, compiler, runtime, compiler version, operating system, the requirements that were set, the options that were set, full settings that were deduced depending on the settings that were built here. The full requirements, argparser does not have any additional dependencies, so we also just have argparser, but a bit more of a concrete version. The full options, since argparser does not have any options, this is also empty, and also a few more informations. Also that one in here that depends on how it was generated on your system, on your compiler, on your operating system, so also a file that we do not want to have in our git commits, so we also want to include Conan info.txt. Right, adding that in here should disappear there. Now you can see we have another file in here, graph_info.json. This is also some intermediate file generated by Conan. I don't know what it really means, but it's something that we don't need yet, or probably never in our Git repository. So graph_info.json, it's gonna be excluded. It's really something like a dependency graph, which might be able to be consumed by, I don't know quite sure. It could be that this one can be actually used by GitHub to detect dependencies. However, there's nothing in here, so yeah, I know what it really is. So really the only thing that we need is the Conan file.txt. All generated files, we want to exclude them. Now, how do we integrate that one now with our build system? You can see that we have the Conan build info.txt, and in theory, in our Conan build info.txt, everything that we need is already in here. However, there are two problems with it. First of all, these informations are only for debug, not for release builds. And secondly, it's a TXT file. We cannot really use that inside of Lua, or we could use it, but we would need to write a big of boilerplate Lua function. And what we rather would have is one Lua file that in general has all the information in here. And that's what we can do with a generator. A generator in Conan means how the build file shall be generated out of the Conan info txt or Conan build info.txt. So you can see that in this example, I use the generator premake to generate a premake file. And we can try this out. If I go to my Conan file, which is here, and I add the generator premake in here, it shall output something that premake can use. So let's run the command again. It should be quite faster. And you can see, yeah, we have a new file that has been generated, Conan build info.premake.lua. And if we take a look at this, you can see that we now actually have some Lua code in here with a Conan build type, the Conan architecture, the Conan include directories that we need, library directories, binary directories, system libs, defines, flags, everything that we had at the build info as a txt file, we have it in here as some code for Lua. So some code here. However, we have a big problem with that. Still, one problem solved, it's in a Lua format. Problem that we have, it's just debug. Well, can we change it to release? Yes, we can. We can execute the command with release. And if we do that, release. Yeah, if we do that, it doesn't, they don't change. This is some problem. It should in theory change because it's actually different, but we can't really see it in here because it is just a header-only library. But what I can do quickly is I can quickly add some dependency in here that hopefully does not add too much, but zlib is quite a small library. If I add zlib in here, you're gonna see a difference. So if I quickly add zlib in here and run this on debug quickly, it's gonna quickly download and maybe even compile zlib. Because Visual Studio 2022 is not really here, but you can see now it's actually compiling. It's compiling zlib. Zlib is a compression library. It's now compiling it, it's installing it, and boom, it's done. And if we take a look at this now, you can actually see that we have a bit more information here. We have library directories and actually a library that we should use. Just gonna let zlib in here for today just to show you that everything works. And what we now do, if we are switching it to release, is take a look at the library directory. If I run this, at release, it's building it again because now it's building it in release mode. And as soon as it's done, you're going to see that this path is going to change for a release build. Now you can see, boom, the path has been changed here to the zlib, also here to the include. And that's a problem, right? Because, yeah, that changed to release as well. And the problem is that we have the same file for two different configurations, and that's a problem that we need to solve. So what we could do is we could copy files over and have some premake.debug.lua and the premake.release.lua, but this is also going to give us some problems because we can't include both of them because the variables are named the same, and really Conan and multiple configurations, debug and release, it's a madness. However, there is a way around that, and the way around that is not using the generator at all. We do not want to use that premake generator, we want to do this on our own. Now, how do we do this on our own? Yeah, sadly, it involves coding, actual coding that is not C++. Now, this is some boilerplate code that I'm going to write. You can use it. I don't know under which license I have uploaded my tutorial code. Do I have a license in here? What is that? Unlicensed? No, it's mid-licensed. So if you're using it, mid-licensed is okay. Now, what I want to do is I have this devtool.py. And what I want to do is I actually want to create myself a new file and call this conan.py. I'm not quite sure, is it going to invoke? It's probably should invoke the right Conan. Yeah, it's still invoking the right Conan because it's a PI file and normally not executable, but yeah, I should be 100% safe. All right, so I want to now go for it and completely show you how to write that Python script to convert all this Conan stuff to a Lua file. I wanted to show this to you. However, this did take me quite a while to write. It's not that long, like I think like 40 or 50 minutes, but I decided to not show this on video, so you're rather going to see this notice here. The video is going to continue in a few seconds, where I'm just going to assume that you have watched writing me that code. However, you have not watched it. If you want to watch it, there's going to be a link in a video description that you can click on, and I'm going to have a dedicated video that just shows you how to write the tool. It's going to be completely on YouTube if you're interested in basically seeing how this was written with like all this, how I write Python. If I have no clue of Python, okay, I have a bit of clue of Python, but yeah, you can watch it. If you don't want to watch it, I'm going to quickly go over how you can use it. I've added like a license in here. It's a boot software license, which basically means, hey, keep these line 9 to 31 in here, keep them in there. But if you are creating a product out of that, just use it. That's basically what this license does. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to give you legal advice, but that's just a summary. If you have some more questions about license, again, just ask a lawyer. This you can copy paste this from the GitHub repository, or what you can also do, I've created a gist. A gist is something with a rather odd URL that basically just has that file in here, right? There's just a single file that you can use and copy paste for all of your projects where you might want to need this. It's not that long, but there's quite some information condensed in here. So if you're interested, click the box now or go to the video description to watch that actual video. But now I'm going to continue on with the normal video. So have fun using that. Alright, and this should now emit all important information into our Lua file. And if I now take a look at the output Lua file, Conan build info.lua, we should have the libs, system libs, system libs, defines, lib directories, include directories. Now these are now all some proper Lua style data that we need. Now, of course, this is also generated depending on the system, so it should be git ignored. Let's add this one in here. Conan build info.lua. That's something that we also do not need. And after a lot of Python mangling, we are ready to use it. And again, you can use my Conan.py. I might add a bit of the mid license on top of that file so that you can simply just reuse that file. It's going to be simple, right? I mean, it's Python. It's actually quite short for what it does, right? Because it's Python and it's nice for managing your repository. It's not that hard to understand, right? So yeah, but you do not need to understand it. It's we now just need to include this into our Lua project setup. Now, first of all, we need to include it in general. So our premake5.lua now also needs to include the other ones. It should be included first. Otherwise, the arrays are not going to be present. So Conan build info, or Conan build info.lua should be included first. Shouldn't change anything. It's now taking a bit longer because the Python always needs to run. This is why it now takes a bit longer to generate, because it's basically regenerating JSONs and the Lua file every time you run the command. You could also check for changes, but don't bother doing that here. It's fast enough. But it still runs, so it means it's good. Now we just need to modify our cpp tutorial.lua. So let's maybe put that aside and have it side by side with the Conan build info.lua, so that we need to know what we use. So first of all, for each project where we had like the include directories, I want to now also add include directories for Conan. So debug include directories and release include directories. Now, of course, this needs to be done inside of debug and release. Haha. Let's maybe create a new block down here. We can comment Lua with double dash. Something like Conan down here, so that we know that. So what I want to have is I want to have the configuration debug, and this filter needs to be closed somewhere. And then I want to not have the configuration release. I actually want to have the configuration not debug, because you might have multiple configurations, and everything that is not debug shall be treated as a Conan release. So that's kind of like our template here for Conan, and we want to start by the include directories. Let's start with the include directories here by adding in the debug Conan include directories, and I'm going to later on replace this all with release. So we also have lib directories, I think it's just libdirs, yeah, libdirs, Conan libdirs. And we have the defines. All of the linking is only done if we are actually doing an application, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to differentiate between these. The linking is only, or should only be done if you're doing building an application. You cannot always link. You can, in theory, always link, but it's going to give you sometimes it's going to give you issues, right? I'm just going to define that one. The libs are not going to be used here. The libs that are being supplied with the link command are not going to be used here. For that, I'm going to write as our own function. So a function cppt link Conan. that are gonna add the Conan linking to your project. Now it is gonna do this similar to how we have done it here. So we're gonna start with the template, and then we're gonna remove it, and we're gonna add the proper ones, and it's called links. We already used this function. We can use the links to add normal libraries as well. So Conan libs are gonna be used in links. And then we also gonna use the system libs. Then we can copy and paste this down in here. I don't know why you tend to reformat this one. And then use the release libs and the system libs. And now we just need to call this link function everywhere where we're going to use Conan. I'm just going to start using it here on the CMD tools. We just going to link or start linking from here, because on the other ones we really don't need them. And now if I rerun them, we should be able to now use the libraries that we just used. So it has generated a few things because they all have new new requirements. But now, hey, we are in here, and we should now be able to include the argparser, argparser/argparser.hpp, and also zlib, right? Because zlib is really the thing that we are linking. zlib.h works. Zlib is actually a C library, and this was all just used for demonstration purpose, which is why it's gonna go again. We just used it for optimizing it, but for now, if I would go to my CPP tools, whatever, if I go in here and I go to something like C++ additional include directories and go to this thing, you can see that we have like argparser and zlib in here, which is the common thing that you have. Argparser, zlib, we just had it in here. And if I go to linker, we also have additional library directories, which is zlib, because the argparser doesn't need linking. And we should at some point also have additional libraries, which are in import. Yeah, zlib.lib. So you can see that everything is set up correctly. We have include directories, library directories, and the libraries are linked. And everything else is managed by Conan, right? It's very, very simple. Now we have the argparser here. Let's quickly get our example working so that we can validate that if everything is working. I'm going to quickly regenerate because we have removed the zlib dependency, so we do not need it anymore, which should make the JSON quite smaller and this library one quite smaller here. So here, now let's actually start with their example. Where is it? Argparser. We are on the release page here, so let's quickly see how it worked. Now, first thing that we have done is we have created our instance from the argument parser, like that, and we call it that one 10 CMD tools, version 1.0. Very simple. Don't need a 0 here. We have like the program. Now we need to define the arguments that are used. With add argument, we can have parameter packing, a small one, the long one. I tend to use them. Program add argument v. In this case, it's going to be g, and the long form is going to be greet. Now what you can also do is you can add a description to that, or how was it called? Help. No, it's called help to add a description to that. The help information for that comment will be the person to be greeted. We can do this twice. Now we want to do this with the M for message, or long MSG, the greeting message. Do it like that. Now we have all the arguments. You can tell it if it's required or not. In our case, we're going to say required true, I think, or just required. Yeah, it's just required. To mark these ones as required. Exactly what it is. Then now we need to try to parse these ones. I'm just going to copy and paste the code from the example. So try program parse arguments, argc and argv. Going to parse them. And then if there's an error, I'm outputting this. I'm going to use this one to see out because we have talked about that one. And then I'm going to use a return here, and I'm going to say return -1 because we had a problem here. Right, so see out program, they are outputting the program. This is basically, I think, giving some information about the application. We're going to see what it is. I don't know really if you need it. It should give you some additional information, right? If you are printing that. We're going to see. Now, if it succeeded, we can try to get these strings out of there. Now, how do we do this? Well, we just std cout and say hello. Now, that's the person that we want to greet. I'm going to get this one by calling program.get a std string for something, and then we're gonna end the line here and say std handle. Go to the next line, and then we're gonna have the greet message, program get std string, like that, and then yeah, that's the end. We do not need to add something more on here. And I think they just used square, but they also used that one in here. So I think you should use the first one, but you can actually use everything. But I want to just have something like message and the greeting that I have. And now we should have a valid application. If I start this, it should give me some errors because I have not supplied the correct debugging arguments. So it says, okay, -g required, usage, help, greet, var, message, var, and you get something like shows help message and exits, prints version information, exits the person to be greeted, required, the greeting message, also required. So this is kind of like how you use your application. I don't think that I want to bother adding proper debugging arguments. We can quickly go to my build directory here, binary. We should be on debug currently. So let's open CMD up. 10 command line tools is the one that we want to run. And what I can do is like something like V for version. I get the version, or help to get this help message. And what I can now also do is something like greet Ludwig. Message is going to be hello world. And if I run this like that, it just doesn't work. I know, because I need to put this into quotation marks if I have some space in here. If you have space in a command line, you need to have quotation marks so that they are passed as one argument. And I get like a message, hello Ludwig, comma, hello world. And yeah, that's the purpose of adding libraries, that you do not need to write that code on your own, right? You're using a library and it's easy. And everything else in this long video was just used to get like Conan working how I like to have it working. And it's boilerplate code that you can skip. All right, before we're going to end the video, there's one important thing that I forgot. We need to add one more thing to our git ignore. Actually, if you are using Python and if you're using external files, for example, devtool.py, I've changed a few things in here. Basically, I'm passing the Conan arguments in here as well. With build missing, there's a now passed in here and not through the Conan.py that I have written. And if you're doing it like that, it's gonna, since we are importing Conan, it's gonna create a PyCache, and you always want to exclude any PyCache that you have. So inside your git ignore, you simply want to exclude PyCache. So this is like PyCache. So everything /_PyCache __, this should all be excluded. I hope this is removing it. Yeah, it is removing that from Git. And now having this been written like that, this basically means these two dots here means everything that is in the subfolder PyCache should be removed. And the folder PyCache can be located everywhere. So any folder that's got __ PyCache, remove that folder and all content. Do not include it in Git. Get it away. Done. Finish. Everything out of here. PyCache away. Simple like that. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye.